that one such person contacted me via unconventional means, and understand that the technology that exists in the black world is truly science fiction-like. The satellites that the NSA has, that the CIA has, that the Air Force has, that the National Reconnaissance Office has, can target any square meter of real estate on the Earth at any time. And the electronic equipment on these satellites is also mind-bending. They can literally beam a radio or microwave transmission to any square meter on the planet's surface at any time. So it would be child's play for any of these agencies to target my house and my bedroom in the middle of any night and to beam a transmission to me. Now, the hard part would be for any given individual to commandeer 5 minutes of said satellite's time and direct its transmitters towards my humble little alley student ghetto apartment at that time. But the easy part would be sending the transmission. The hard part would be getting the satellite time, because those are expensive machines. However, if you're a plugged-in insider inside the black world, I suppose you would have your ways and would be able to finagle a few minutes of a satellite's time. Or you could do it with a truck parked out back in the alley, or with a helicopter hovering overhead. There's more than one way that it could be done. The transmitters do exist. I've seen the patents. I've been told on the quiet by an ex-military person that they do have them, but they use them in compartmentalized black projects. Now, I went out the next day and started immediately looking for a paper trail that would verify what this man told me. I have found that paper trail in spades. In fact, I found so much paper that it has astonished even me. And I went on to document even more underground bases than I knew about in November of 1992. And I've been told of yet more secret installations, and I found documentation, and I discussed this in Hidden in Plain Sight from Lloyd Duchamp, who was the assistant director for construction for the Army Corps of Engineers back in the 1980s, who gave a public speech at a seminar being held, an academic and industry seminar being held at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And the topic of the conference was underground excavation. And he gave a speech at that conference, delivered a paper in which he said, the Army Corps of Engineers has made some very interesting and unusual underground projects, bases on the order of what was done for NORAD under Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado.
Cheyenne Mountain's fascinating. It's been there a long time, hasn't it?
Yes, and it's a big one. It was built back in the late 50s, early 1960s. The Army Corps of Engineers did help make that. It's a major, deeply buried, very sophisticated underground base. And what Lloyd Duchamp said in his talk in 1987 at MIT was, look, we've built other facilities like this, but they're, black budget essentially. They're top secret. I can't tell you about them. I can only tell you that we have made them, and they're unusual and interesting. And that's all I can say about it. So there you have, from the horse's mouth, a direct public admission that the military does have secret underground bases above and beyond what we can read about in the daily newspaper. In the daily newspaper, what we do read about, or can read about if you read carefully over the years, are such facilities as, of course, the giant NORAD base under Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, but also the Mount Weather base that's run by FEMA, which is in the Blue Ridge Mountains about an hour's drive west of Washington, D.C., or you can read about the military's Site R complex, which is also a large, very technologically sophisticated, deeply buried underground base beneath a mountain that's on the border between Maryland and Pennsylvania, just in the small town of Cascade, Maryland, and that's run by the military for the Pentagon. It's the Pentagon's alternate command center. It's their it's the so-called underground Pentagon, if you will. It's very large. It's very deeply buried. It's very high-tech, sci-fi-like almost, cutting-edge, technologically cutting-edge, deeply buried facility. My understanding is that has been enlarged over the last year or two. And so those are some of the ones that you can find pretty easily in the public record that are not secret, but there are others that are secret, that are top secret, and Lloyd Dusha has told us so. That's how we know.
I love that it's verifiable in your book, rather than your story, or not that your story isn't interesting, your story is extremely interesting, that in the 1960s, LBJ had executive orders or documents talking about building a 3,500-foot base in the D.C. area. Can you speak about that?
Oh, yes. The plans for that are documented from the highest levels of the last weeks of the John F. Kennedy presidency, and then after his assassination in November of 1963, the paper trail continues at the highest levels of the American government over into the Lyndon Baines Johnson administration. So the plans for this started in 1963 in the JFK administration, and then after his murder, continued right over into the LBJ administration. Indeed, those plans, and I detail that, I produced several of the memos from the highest levels of these two administrations in my book.
How did you get all these documents? Seriously, didn't it take a long time?
Yes, I do a lot of research, and I've been at it for years. I visit archives, data repositories, research libraries of all kinds, private and public and quasi-government and governmental. And I just do a lot of serious nuts and bolts research looking for the paper trail. And 99.99999% of my information comes right off the public record. You know, that's documented information I have. Of course, I also get some leaks here and there from people who've worked on the inside or know about what happens on the inside. But I have to say, these plans do explicitly discuss building a manned base 3,500 feet deep beneath Washington, D.C., with high-speed elevator access straight down from the surface, zooming straight down 3,500 feet underground. Now, this is from circa 1963, 1964. So that's, almost half a century ago. And the idea was to have high-speed elevator access from the White House, from the State Department, and from the Pentagon that would go down to this very deep level where there would then be access tunnels that would carry personnel and people from the government to the manned facility itself. Now, it's interesting to me that just a few years after these plans were made, the Washington, D.C. metro system construction began and continued right up until just a few years ago. So for a period of about 35 years, you had this ongoing underground tunnel construction project for construction of the United States of the Washington, D.C. area subway system, underground subway system. Such a project would make a perfect cover for constructing yet another tunnel system, one or more, that would be even more deeply buried, because you could use the one construction system to take men, equipment, materials, machinery, including tunnel boring machines, underground. And then once underground, they would stay underground for years or even decades in some cases. And so you could shield one project under the guise of building another.
I wish they had used that in Chile to get the miners out, that tunnel boring machine.
It wasn't necessary. What they used was perfectly good.
Really?
And worked just fine. Um,